I am the worst at cleaning my tools, so let's see if this ultrasonic cleaner makes it easier for me. Stick around. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. And yeah, you can see these tools, they're just absolutely atrocious. In fact, let's look at this crescent wrench. Let's look at how nasty this is. And there's a specific reason. Whenever the Super Auto caught fire, I did what I always do. I have all the tools I've been using on the project sitting around the vehicle in strategic places where I've used them. So whenever it came to the transmission, I had these 3 or 4 wrenches there that I'd been used to bolt up the transmission. I had, some of these wrenches over here that was backed by the rear axle. All of these tools were sitting around the truck. Well, whenever it caught fire, I just put the fire out, and the dry chemical agent got all over these tools, and I need to clean them. Well, I generally, at the end of a project, what I'll do is I'll leave all my tools out. It's not the best way of doing it. Once the project's over, I'll come over and I'll do what everybody else does. I'll go through a can and a half of brake cleaner and half a box of shop rags to get everything cleaned up. And I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. And so I was looking at just standard part washers, and I started thinking about it. I said, Mrs. Garage has got this great little ultrasonic cleaner that she uses to clean her jewelry and stuff like that. I was like, how much would it be to get one that was big enough to fit all of my tools in, maybe even a carburetor or bigger parts, and clean them that way? And so I jumped on the old Amazon, of course, and I'll put a link down to this unit down below, and this was about $200. It's heated, ultrasonic, and we're going to try a couple different compounds. One of them is just going to be our standard water degreaser mix that everybody talks about. This is supposed to be good to go. And then I went out and picked up one by Lucas Oil that's designed for cleaning guns. And the cool thing about this stuff is it has a rust inhibitor, kind of like leaves an oil on it. So whenever you get done cleaning your tools or your parts, you pull them up, you wipe them down, and you should be able to just store them, and they're not going to have any issues with flash corrosion or flash rusting like you might just using a standard degreaser. And so we'll see. I'm going to pick out kind of split this group of nasty tools in half, run some of them through with the degreaser, some of them through with the gun cleaning compound, and then we'll kind of do a comparison, look at how everything came out, how clean everything is, and see kind of what we suggest as far as what I think is going to work best in the standard shop use, things like that. As far as the unit, it came box ready to go. You just plug the thing in, take some of the plastic off of it. It has a little tea maker, basically. If you've got some small things like maybe some nitrous jets that you want to clean up, you can throw them in this little contraption here. It has your standard basket that you can run things in, and I think the one that I got big enough is even big enough to put a 4-barrel carburetor in, because I got a dirty Edelbrock carburetor. I'd like to just go ahead and put that whole thing in here with maybe some degreaser and see what goes with that. And then of course it comes with a nice long hose that you hook up to the drain, so it makes it easy to drain out your fluid and put it into an appropriate container to get rid of it. So for now, I want to grab some hot water, and we're going to do about a 75-25% blend on this. Throw some dirty tools in here, and then I'll do some stop motion or some time lapse of the tools getting cleaned up so you guys can watch. Okay, so we're done. Let's go ahead and pull our tray out and take a look. Wow, okay, so the worst of it, which is this spacer, it really just rusted up really bad, but the crescent cleaned up real nice. Got all the surface rust off for the most part. Something like this where the gears always kind of get gross and bound up. It's going to help with that. So let's just go ahead. It's one of my favorite ratchets right there, and this is probably the cleanest it's ever been. Vice grips are, oh wow, okay, really did a good job on the vice grips here as far as, or the side cutters. They need wiped down. So we'll go ahead and pull everything out, get this basket out of the way. And some of the stuff that I'm always worried about is these box end ratchets. A little bit of surface rust left on that cheap Allen head. One of our legs came off of our basket. Surprise, surprise. And the water's nice and dirty, so that's a good sign. Okay, so as you can see, the oil kind of emulsified into the water once it started vibrating. I went ahead and left out a gear wrench and a ratchet from the last batch, and we're going to pull this one out and see how well it did. I threw a lot more parts in on this one. And yeah, we're definitely going to want to wipe these down since they have this oil coating on it. But it seems to have done a really good job, especially on some of these gear wrenches because they were getting, oh wow, yeah, it definitely loosened that up. Clean that up. You can see kind of some residue that's floating around from where it was cleaning inside of there. So, you know, it might be subjective as far as with some stuff like the ratchets, maybe run the oil to help kind of internally lubricate some of the stuff that's going on. And then the rest of it, you can run just standard degreaser. But looking at the stuff that I ran through just the degreaser, I was pretty happy with how all of that turned out. Go ahead and get all this out. My universal, it probably is looser than it needs to be now because of this. Everything looks pretty good. There's a couple items that still have a little bit of surface rust. Apparently you can run a mixture of water and vinegar if you're really trying to strip rust off. Our collar still has quite a bit of rust on it, but it's not bad. I'm going to leave that out. We'll dry it off, and I'm going to see what kind of surface rust it builds up on it in the meantime. And so, as an example, here's the same. Okay, yeah, that's definitely feels a little oily. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can feel the oil on the one that was ran through the oil. Even after wiping it off, it's got a, it's not quite kind of like if it had WD-40 on it. Whereas the one beforehand just feels like it's been cleaned, you know, with water basically, or maybe even with kind of like the brake cleaner. But that oily doesn't feel bad. The question is whether or not it's going to cause it to pick up more grime, or if once it's wiped off, if it'll stay clean. Because if that's the case, running the Lucas stuff may be the way to go to help kind of protect a lot of these things that maybe are more prone to surface rust or flash rusting, things like that. So I'm going to dry these things off real quick, or at least wipe them down, let them air dry the rest of the way. And then let's see if we can fit a carburetor in here. Okay, now for the moment of truth. Our Edelbrock 4-barrel is just filthy, as you can see, all down around here. Ideally, you would want to disassemble some of this. Yeah, we don't care. Just see if we can get the whole thing submerged in here. Back. Let's pull the basket out. And I might have to add a little more water to this to top it off. We're going to take her up to the limits here. You can see it's already kind of cleaning some of that up and also kicking some of the dirt up. So let's fire this up. Okay, let's take a look at this carburetor. A lot of dirtiness coming out of this thing. You know, overall, it looks like it did a pretty darn good job. There's a couple nooks and crannies that could use a little work. A lot of the surface gunk, it got off, no problem. Yeah, actually, okay, so here's a bunch of stuff over here that if it was treated maybe another time or two, it would help to get off some of this oil and maybe some gasoline that's gotten on the unit on this side of it. But it is definitely a heck of a lot cleaner. And my guess is that if we'd used the degreaser solution, maybe it'd done a better job of getting some of that off. And so that's where I'm kind of torn between, is using the gun cleaner solution with the oil. Specifically, like on this thing, I don't think that we had necessarily needed to, because most of it is aluminum, obviously. And even the pieces that aren't aluminum are plated. And so it's probably not going to have any kind of rust issues regardless. So that's something to keep in mind. But let's go ahead and wrap it up and talk about this thing. So that is our cheap Amazon ultrasonic cleaner. I got to say, for a couple $100, I like it a lot so far. If I had to choose between using the oil and the ultrasonic or the standard degreaser mix, I'd probably lean towards just the degreaser. I think it's going to be perfectly fine. I really, other than the feel that I talked about afterwards, it's hard to tell the difference. Now, these are the same wrench, but one's a KR and the other, or a KY, and the other one's a VR. And I don't know if you can pick up that noise, but it almost seems like the one that was done in the oil is a little bit quieter. But since they're not exactly the same, they're both 44995s. So technically they're the same model. I think they're built in different plants, and so that might be what's going on there. But for just feeling it out, 90% of the time, I'm probably just going to run the standard degreaser mix with some water in here. Just dump all my tools after a project, let it run for 15 or 20 minutes, pull them out, wipe them off, throw them in the toolbox. The crazy thing about it is, though, about everything that I ran through here, either with this oil-based stuff or the standard degreaser, I can walk over to the toolbox and spot those tools right away, because they are just that much cleaner than everything else in there. And I'm pretty good about always wiping my tools down before putting them up. So, you know, and the cool thing about it is while this was running, I'm breaking down boxes, you know, cleaning up other things. And so I'm not spending time cleaning these tools. I'm getting them cleaner than I normally do. And so it's kind of a win-win for somebody like me that's pretty messy, always leaves their tools out until the end of the project, and then wants to get them all cleaned up and put away in a bulk kind of setting. So as I said, I'll put a link to this down below, along with to the oil. If you've got any questions, hit up the comments. Let me know what are your solutions that you guys might be using to keep your tools clean, things like that. You know, I might have to run that carburetor through another one with just the degreaser solution, see how it does versus that, see if it cleans it up a little bit more. Overall, the carburetor came out about 80% cleaner than it was whenever it went in there. It looks a lot better, but it has a lot more that needs to be cleaned up on it. So that's pretty much it. You guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.